I think that while we are getting help to hand out the cards, I would like to introduce two very interesting people. And it was quite a challenge to secure their attendance because they operate and they work in a very unique project. They're like bees. You've all seen Yaakov. Yaakov is a person who travels very extensively, helping other countries implement democratic education. And who stays behind is an office full of people. Wherever he might go, they continue implementing the project. They are like little bees, and they are doing really a very great job. Omer and Shachaf. The person who is working with the Israeli Ministry of Education to promote democratic education throughout the school system. Omer works to promote international projects helping other countries democratize their education. This is crucially important because our speakers are going to present a demonstration of how they go about doing it. I understand that no one now has any doubt that it is a worthwhile exercise to democratize, to introduce democratic education.
Thank you. First of all, hey everyone, nice to meet you. My name is Omer. I come from Israel. I work with Yaakov. This is Shachaf.
Hello.
We are going to have a talk about education, democratic education, and something we call the T model. Now, I'm going to start with telling you a bit about myself, and we gave you cards, and unfortunately, we did not realize how big this conference is going to be, which is amazing. So unfortunately, we don't have enough cards for everyone. But when I ask a question, raise the green card if you agree, the yellow card if you somewhat agree, and the red card if you disagree. Now, I'm going to tell you just a bit about myself. As I mentioned, my name is Omer. I'm 32 years old, and I quit school when I was in 12th grade. Ever since I can remember myself, I remember myself observing and looking at people and thinking, what are they thinking about? What are they interested in? What am I interested in? And as I grew up towards high school, the questions became bigger and bigger. And the political situation in Israel also didn't make things any easier. And I was asking myself all sorts of big questions, which I felt nobody is discussing them in schools. And I remember myself thinking, I am not learning here that much. And my first question to you here is whether you felt when you were a student that you were not interested in what they're teaching in school. So raise your green card if you felt that you didn't learn something you're interested in school. The yellow card if that's partially true, and the red card if you felt that you are learning and you're interested in what you're learning. Okay. Another thing I felt was that there are so many things I'm thinking about, so many things I feel, and none of the teachers actually approached me, and I was actually waiting for them. I wanted them to come to me and ask me, Omer, what are you thinking about? How do you feel? Like, forget all the rest of the stuff, but like school and exams, but what are you interested in? What are you thinking about? Because they clearly saw that I was a good student. I was interested in the academic stuff per se, but I started slacking out. And I was actually waiting for someone to come and ask me, what are you thinking about? Did you have someone coming to you when you were a student asking you, how do you feel? What are you thinking about? You did or you didn't? You didn't, okay. So for me, that was the reason why I quit school, and that was exactly the stage where I started becoming interested in education. And I feel like that's something that's true for a lot of us educators trying to make things different than the way we were as students. And I remember that one more thing that you should know about me, and I'm really proud of, is that I'm a climber. I started climbing when I was in 5th grade, and it's a very, very important part of who I am. I've become a climbing instructor, and I am now part of the Climbing Association in Israel. It's been a job for me, it's been a mission for me. That's a way I educate kids. And this thing that I started doing when I was in 5th grade, which really shaped who I am as a person, had no place in school. Because there is no climbing lessons, there is no music lessons, there are no, I don't know, theater there are, but there are many topics we don't have. Do you feel that you have a strength that you have no place to express when you were a student? Okay, so right now I would like you to divide to pairs and divide to pairs and discuss your school experience. What was it for you to be a student in school? You can divide to pairs. Preferably with people you don't know. Okay. So I am really curious about your experiences. If we had more time, I would have listened to them, but since this is very intimate but a bit too big, we won't be able to do it. But I feel like this is the first stage of what we're actually trying to do here. To have me, instead of lecturing and telling you, I'm asking you, am I inviting you to be a part of a discussion, of a dialogue. And that way, it's not only about the teacher or about the presenter or the lecturer, but about harnessing all the energies and human resources that we have here for a learning process. And that way, we are all engaged because it's relevant to our lives. Now, in your pairs, please think of a different profession than the one you have today. What would it be? If you could choose a different profession and be someone else, be the same person but with a different profession, something you've always wanted to do, what would it be? Share with the person next to you. Okay, I'm going to stop you for just 1 second because you can continue your work. Now, I was just told that the IDIC organizers just told us that each one of you received a yearly salary and a budget to learn whatever you want, but not in an academic institute. Plan your year and learning process. What would you learn, with who and how? So you have this dream profession, now you have a yearly salary and all the time you need to make your dream come true, but there is only one thing you can do, and that's to go to an academic institute. How would you get your goal and how would you plan your year? You have 10 minutes for this question. You can work in pairs and share it with the person next to you. Go. Okay, now that a year has passed and you have new professions and new abilities, we are asking you, each group of 4, a new question. As a group, plan your own democratic school. The first step is to agree on 5 principles, which will be the key principles of your school. You have 15 minutes to come up as a group with 5 principles which will be the main principles of the school. What do you believe in? What do you think is the most important thing to have in your school? Go. Guys, I know that 15 minutes is not enough to start your own school, but we have to go back to our conversation. Now, I would like to have 2 or 3 volunteers from different groups to tell us about your principles. Anyone wants to share their principles? Yes.
Здравствуйте.
Hello everyone. We came up with 5 principles for our democratic school. Principle number 1 is happiness of the child, an individual approach. Not more than 10 kids per class. Project-based education and soft skills and no marks. Any evaluations will be done on an annual basis using testing. That's it.
Thank you.
I know I would go to your school. Anyone else wants to share? Yes.
So English, Russian, which one is more fun?
For you to decide, we believe in free choice.
Ми вибрали один головний принцип для нашої
We picked one big principle, is the principle of flexibility, allowing each student to develop their unique talents and capabilities by picking the subjects and workloads that they can handle, and this will begin with a very broad choice of things to pick to promote development, and this will eventually be geared towards professional orientation at the end of the schooling.
This is flexibility, where all the children will be developing from the beginning in the enabling environment, and then they will have always the opportunity to choose subjects according to their needs and according to their talents, okay? And it will come more narrow to choosing the profession in the future. Yes.
So for us, it was that teachers must be happy, because as long as they are happy, students will be happy as well. The second one was the freedom of choice for teachers as well as for students in everything. One of the ideas was that teachers shouldn't be only doing what the educational system tells them to do, but to do what they feel like doing for their students, because they're the ones who connect the most to us as students. The third is that teachers also must know what democracy is, because for now, a lot of students learn about democracy from books. We just read, okay, this is democracy, blah, blah, blah. But first, teachers must know what it is, and then they will teach students by showing an example of what democracy is. Because teachers feel sometimes, not all of you though, that they have way too much power, and they're not ready to give up this power to students. Also, that's a big point, and I'm thankful for that to our teacher. Being able to express yourself the way you are, because teachers often wear a mask. Okay, I'm happy even though I'm not happy at the moment, to be convincible to students. So teachers should be able to express themselves the way they are. And we have a lot of debate about that. So how to be happy, how to teach students if you aren't happy. You should be true yourself, but you should also explain why you aren't feeling good at the moment. And the last one, for teachers to work as a team, to collaborate with different teachers as well, with their students, to understand how to deal with common problems that occur on a daily basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I would like to hear everyone's opinions, but we don't have time for that, unfortunately. I agree with a lot of things you said, and each one of them is like a basis for like a really interesting conversation. I deeply agree with the idea of being a person and not a persona, and expressing who you are. And yes, I'm Omer. I am very hyperactive. My mind's wandered to many different places as a teacher. And for some students it works, and for some it doesn't. But that's a part of who I am, and that's a part of my abilities or inabilities. It depends how you look at it. But my question for now, and we're going to discuss about a lot of the things you said, but my question is now, I asked you about democratic schools. But these principles, can they be implemented in your schools, which are not necessarily democratic per se? And I think that's the interesting question. And Yaakov, the founder of our organization, Education Cities, actually started the organization out of a realization that humanistic and dialogue-based education should not be restricted to alternative schools. And these ideas should be spread around and discussed in the regular system, in the classic systems as well. So we are actually going to start now with some of the concepts and a model that we try to spread around called the T model. And the question is, what is democratic education? And I would change it and ask, what is dialogue-based education? Because I think all of us, and I am going to bet that in all of your principles, the principle of seeing the students as a person, as an individual, as someone who's capable of thinking and worth being asked and answered, is something that we all agree upon. So from that, we're going to this. This is a factory, and this is actually the reason why schools as we know them started. Schools as we know them started because of the Industrial Revolution, and the industries needed a fast and efficient way to prepare the employees for factory work. And obviously we had schools before, thousands of years ago, but they were aimed mainly for royalties, kids and kings and queens, but schools as we know them were aimed for this, rows and lines. And the question is, how do we prepare our students for nowadays lives? Do most workplaces look like this, or like this? Or like this? Or like this? Okay, now it works. So this is in Tel Aviv. This is WeWork, but that's something that's happening all over the world. And we see that nowadays, and we talk about 21st century skills, we talk a lot more about interacting, about being creative, about working in a team, and coming up with new solutions. And I feel that it's much more about learning how to learn instead of what to learn. And so there is this classic classroom where the teacher is teaching everyone. And let's just say that I'm teaching a new topic in English, in grammar, let's just say present perfect. The first time I taught it, how many students will understand it, will get it the first time? 10, 20, 30? What's your answer? 1%. So I'm going to be a bit more optimistic, but just a bit. It's like 5%, maybe 10%, 15%, but either way, whatever you do, you cannot make everyone understand the first time you taught it. And then you're in a problem, because you have the ability, you have the choice to either teach it again, and then those who understood it are bored, and you teach it again, but still not everyone's going to get it. And so you're in a pickle. You have like nothing you're going to do is going to work for everyone. And on top of that, we assume that everyone's the same, everyone's blue. But in fact, I'm super hyperactive and I need the visual stimuli to understand. I'm a visual learner, and Shachaf here is an auditory learner. And so no matter what I do as a teacher, I just can't get it right. What do I do? So instead of just perceiving everyone as blue, I realize that everyone's different. Different shapes, different sizes, different colors, different genders, different sex. And we have two principles for Classroom 2.0. All the students are also teachers, and the classroom has a common achievement, as a common goal. And if I say that all the students are also teachers, most of the time until now, I didn't talk. You talk to each other. You have so many abilities, so many strengths, so many things you're interested in, and that you can teach me. Why is the teacher the only one in the class that's holding the knowledge? It makes no logic. It doesn't make any sense. Especially nowadays with the internet, I bet most of you had this moment with this cheeky student telling you, "Teacher, you were wrong. I just checked it." And you were like, well, I don't know what to say. You're probably right, because that's the internet. It knows much more than we do. So maybe our role as teachers is not necessarily knowing everything, and it's necessarily not knowing everything, but doing something different. And our role is definitely important, but it's different. And I'm going to argue that it has always been the case, but now with the internet, it's inevitable to recognize it. Okay. So in 2.0 classroom, the students are different, and maybe I'm teaching the first time, and after the first time, the students can actually teach each other. We have a group of people with many strengths and abilities, and instead of having one whiteboard or blackboard, we have quite a few. And the students can actually teach each other. But in order for the class to work as a team, we call it the team model, the first step should be getting to know each other, should be respecting one another, should be actually seeing the person next to me, just like you did when we started. Because one of the things we do as teachers is to tell the kids, the students, okay, you're a team, you should work as a team, why don't you care for one another? But life doesn't work that way. Just if I tell you, you should work with me, you should collaborate with me, why would you? Just because I said it? It doesn't work that way for us as adults. One of the key principles, I think, here you said it, that the teachers would work as a network themselves. And so we're demanding from the students to do things we're not doing ourselves. And that makes no sense. And in this 2.0 classroom, in this 2.0 education and school, we should try and practice what we preach. And if we talk about this transition from a pyramid paradigm, where the principal is the right one who knows everything and the teachers do whatever the principal says and the students do whatever the teachers say, in Classroom 2.0 and in Education 2.0, we work as a network. Each one of us have their own strengths and weaknesses. We all have our different colors. We all have our passions. And we have a mutual goal. That also means experimenting. That means failing. And in my opinion, failing is an inherent part of learning. And that's something we don't say enough and we don't believe enough in our classrooms. And in order for all of that to happen, we should start, and the first step is with the atmosphere, is by playing together, is getting to know each other, is asking the students, what are you interested in? What is your passion? Do you feel that you find a way to express yourself in school? And if not, do you have something you do after school, like climbing or music or I don't know what, which might make you feel stronger, might make you feel more successful? And after we establish this first and most important step, we can also say, I really believe in failing. Do you believe that we can create an atmosphere and a safe environment within our class? Do you believe that for me, well, that's true, one of the best ways for me to learn is to talk. I talk a lot and I understand, and people provide feedback and tell me what they think. But because I think very fast and I talk very fast, I might say stupid things. Seriously, that's a part of my learning. I'm okay with it. It took me some time to get okay with it, but I'm okay with it now. Are you okay with it? Are you okay with not laughing at me? Okay, so if we talk about the teacher being a person and not a persona, that's a part of it. And that's sincere, that's me. But I also want to enable you to feel safe here, despite the fact that you don't know English and I don't know Russian. But I see you. And I believe that we have a lot of common things. And I believe that we can learn together. So this is the first step, being a real team, being a real group. And that's not easy. It's not easy, but it's possible. I was just told that I have 3 more minutes. So what I suggest, we have a break, we have a lunch break now, and then we are going to continue to our next step. So we are not going anywhere. We're coming back. You can leave your traffic lights signs on your seats, and we'll continue after the break. I'm really enjoying this. I'm really curious about your opinion about what's next. So I'll see you after the break. Thank you. And come back to our lecture. Thank you, girls. That was really fun. Okay, so let's have a reminder of what we talked about. We talked about what we feel school should be like. We talked about what we are interested in as human beings, and that's being noticed and feel like somebody actually sees us and asks us what we're interested about. And so we have the Classroom 2.0, and we call it the team model. And I'm going to ask you now, and you can just shout in either Russian, Ukrainian, English, whatever language you feel like, what do you see here? On the field, what do you see? People, okay. All the people are the same? All the people are the same? Different people, okay. What do you see? Happy, okay. Happy team. Okay, so let's just talk about what we see here. So we have a football field. We have team players. We have boys, we have girls. They come in different shapes, sizes, colors, genders, sexes. What we don't see on the field, what don't we see on the field? Okay, no teacher, no coach. Okay, so I'm going to assume the coach is somewhere over here. I'm the coach, for that matter, or the teacher. Super important, a soccer team needs a coach, but no matter what the coach does, the coach is not on the field. He or she can do their best to prepare the team, but once the game starts, the coach is not on the field, or the teacher. So we talked about team spirit. The best football teams are not the ones with the best players. They're the ones who are prepared the best, who are trained the best, and who have the best relationships and as less ego as possible. And I feel it's pretty much the same when we talk about our class. Now, in the next 45 minutes, I'm going to show you a few tools, practical tools of how to operate the team model and the democratic perceptions in our classes. But it's very important to me to establish the fact that none of the stuff I say here is mandatory. As teachers, as educators, and as human beings, there are the things that you relate to more and the things you relate to less. You have your students. When I talk about these things, I have my students in mind. Your class and who you are is probably very different than mine. Your culture, your country, the demands are different than mine. And so everything is a possibility, is an opportunity, but by no means is it mandatory. So the traffic light, the red cards, is I didn't understand yet. And the word yet is very, very important. The yellow stickers, the yellow cards is I understand but not fully. And the green cards is I understand and I can explain others. And now I'm going to teach you something very, very quickly. And I would like you to use your cards to show me how much you understood. And what I'm going to teach you is from the world of climbing. I'm going to argue to say that climbing is a very, very safe sport. I broke my hands only twice, in football and in basketball, but never in climbing. True story. What I teach my students, my climbing kids, is that climbing is very safe, but it's scary. And what I am telling them is that there is a big difference between dangerous and scary. Climbing is scary, but not dangerous. Driving a car is dangerous, but not scary. And so we are consciously talking about how we feel and what we think. And when we make ourselves aware of what's going on here and what's going on here, it's the first step in working towards feeling better, less scared. Because climbing is scary, but it's very, very safe. And many times we do things that are dangerous, but not scary. I think we all can think of our students and things they do which are quite dangerous, and even ourselves, which are not necessarily scary. So raise your cards now to show me how much you understand the difference between scary and dangerous. Okay, so I see a few yellow cards, which is good, which shows me you understand the drill. And if we had time, I would ask someone next to you who raised the green card to explain you the difference. Now, this is only an exercise, but I think it's a good one to show what happens if we want to teach our class and not repeat many times. So, for example, I taught my class English present simple, and I did it only once, not twice and 3 times to explain those who didn't understand. And after the first time, I'm going to ask the students to raise their cards and divide to groups, and have in each group the different colors. And those who understood can explain those who didn't understand yet. So that's one option of doing it. Another option of doing it is to divide those who understand the green cards to one group and give them exercises. They can work. If they understand, they're pretty independent. The yellow cards can work. They have exercises. And if they don't understand something, I can ask them, you can go and ask help from the green cards. And then I have time to help those who really need me. That's one option. Another option is, just as I mentioned, to have them in mixed groups. Now, obviously, that raises all sorts of difficulties. What happens if I don't feel right to raise the red card? It doesn't make me feel good about myself. It doesn't make me feel good about it. So one option is to have only green and yellow cards. Again, with opportunities, we have challenges. I'm not going to give you all the answers, and those who are interested in talking more about this option of the cards can come and ask me, because I have my answers for these challenges, but they vary. What they are, they provide an opportunity to see the students. There is this student where he or she, I know they know the material. Why are they raising the red card? It's an issue of confidence, not of knowledge. So as an educator, I have the opportunity to see that and talk to him or her about why they chose to raise the red card. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the change is going to be fast. Maybe I should let them be, because it's a process, but I can project it to them, and I can mirror it to them. And here I see an opportunity. Another exercise I can do is ask you, each one of you, and we're not going to do it now because unfortunately we don't have the time, but I'm going to ask, I would have asked each one of you to teach the person next to them something they know in 3 minutes. And by doing that, I'm telling you, you know a lot of things. There is something you can teach each other. There are many things you can teach each other. And you see, what I brought now wasn't math, it wasn't English, it wasn't science, it was something I know, something I find fascinating, and something I'm passionate about, climbing. And it could be anything and everything. It could be cooking, it could be sewing, it could be carpentry, it could be anything. But you know, and we know, so many things that are not necessarily part of school curriculum. So here we see how it happens in practice. These are schools in Israel. And now, we talked about being a part of a team. And I am good in English. I'm not very good at math. But most odds that I will usually raise the green card during English lessons. But during math lessons, I will probably be yellow or red. And that's something important to say to the kids. But even if I'm not green, it doesn't mean that I shouldn't and can't have a role in my team. And here we see only possibilities of what we can be. For example, I can be the editor. I can be responsible for taking notes. I suck at taking notes. I basically can do only one thing simultaneously. Some can actually write and summarize while we're talking, and that's their strength. And that's very important during a learning process. I can be the focuser, I can be the networker, the graphic designer, or the fun maker. We don't talk about the fact that atmosphere is extremely important for learning. And a person who's responsible for making sure we are having fun while studying is extremely important. And we fail to think about it when we think of studying and learning. And I think that's extremely important. And even if I'm not the one who's teaching the material, it doesn't mean I can't be in charge of time, of internet or computers, because I'm not really good at computers also, or in charge of the team atmosphere. So each one of us can be in charge of many different things. I can be in charge of more than one thing. But again, this is only an option. If I'm going to ask you what you're good at and what you'd like to be in charge of, you'll probably come up with roles that are not on the board, and that's completely fine. And the whole point is to invite the students to be a part of the learning process, to be partners in the learning process. If we talk about making the learning process fun, we wish and inspire to gamify the learning process. So I can give each group 6 of these cards and dice, and ask them to every now and then roll the dice and come up with a card saying, stop, what did we have so far? So, what did we have so far? Sorry, I'm not going to put you on it. But that's exactly the point, because during a lesson we're teaching and we're talking and we're talking, and even right now I'm talking for too long, and I don't really know, do you understand? Do you not understand? Are you even curious? Are you listening to me? I don't want to be in charge of the learning process. I want to give it back to you. So as a group, sometimes, even without realizing it, we move on and on, we read another text, we see another video, and we don't really realize, are we actually focused now? Did we understand the main principles, the main terms? So this helps us to actually stop and gamify it and puts light on the learning process, which is really important. Now we see different options of how it can be done. So if we talk about the learning process, I'm going to ask each team to come up with 2 lists. The first list would be your social goals. And when I talk about social goals, it could be having fun, it could be getting to know each other, it could be respecting each other, it could be all sorts of things, but it shouldn't be for me to decide as an educator, as a teacher, or as a teacher, but it should be the student's decision. And once they came up with the list, they are much more responsible for what's going on. They feel much more connected to the process. Now, it could be very, very similar to the list I would have come up with myself, but there is a very, very big difference between me telling you what's the right thing to do and what you should aspire for, and you're coming up with it. So there's a big difference. The second list would be your pedagogic goals. By the end of the month, we want to know this and that topic. By the end of the month, we want to learn about dinosaurs, I don't know what. By the end of the next exam, we want to raise our average grade by 5 points. And that's actually something we do. As a class, I as a teacher know that my class's average grade was 76. Now I'm going to tell my class, do you think we can raise our average in 5 points? Do you think that's possible? And I remind you, this is a later step in the process where they already know the team model and they're already working as a team. And I'm going to tell the student who has 96, usually, you know, the odds of you, even if you improve your score in 4 points, that's the best you can do. But if you teach your friend who has 80 and you can make his grade or her grade 90, that's going to help the average grade of the class much better. And I'm going to tell you a secret. As a teacher, I know and we know that the best way to learn is by teaching. So I promise you that if you're going to help your friend and teach him or her, your grade is going to improve. And for some kids, they need a bit more incentive. And I'm going to tell them, if both of you, if the teacher and the learner manage to improve the learner's grade by 5 points, I'm going to give each one of you extra 5 points. Because both the person who taught and the person who learned made a lot of effort. So I'm going to provide both of you with 5 extra points. And that takes learning to know your students. Do they need this incentive? Or maybe they're mature enough to understand that they don't need any incentive. They believe in helping each other. They believe in having a common goal. So there are, again, I'm only giving you examples, but you have the freedom to decide what's the right thing for you and what's the right thing for your class. And you have all the freedom, all the possibilities to do whatever you want with your class, because you're the expert, you know your students. So here we see elementary school kids working, and you see that one of the groups is sitting on the ground, and they're working relatively together with the teacher. The group closer to us Some of them are working together, some of them are working alone. There is one kid was actually going around, I'm not sure what he's doing, but that's okay. And I think that one of the things that is hardest for us is to let go of power, is to trust the students to do the right thing, or even to do the wrong thing. Because if we trust the students, we trust them to do also what's wrong. Which is kind of weird to say it, but if we believe in making mistakes, we should believe and enable them to make their mistakes, to be irresponsible and bear the consequences of not getting the right score, or a good enough score, whatever. And that's a process for us as teachers. And one of the groups here said, in your principles of the school you would like to have, is that it's not only about the process the students undergo, but also the staff and the teachers. And I think that most of what I'm talking about right here is not about the students, but about us. Here I'm talking about tools, but the deeper understanding is that we are talking about changing how we perceive education and changing how we perceive our role as teachers and educators. And I think this is the more important understanding, because you don't have to use everything here and you may use nothing. Question is, are we willing to start a process of perceiving ourselves and our peers, our colleagues, differently? Am I okay with demanding my teachers, my peers, to work together, to have a talk about education? So many, at least in Israel, so many of the teachers just don't have the time to talk about education like we're doing right now. You finish teacher training, and then you just teach and teach and teach and teach, and you ever stop and wonder, do I believe in what I'm doing? Do I think what I'm doing is right? I'm demanding the students so many things. Am I demanding myself the same things? So I think these are questions that are pivotal and really important in the learning process. And if you remember, the T model has two key principles. Every teacher is a student and every student is a teacher, and having a common goal. And I think it's really important to ask ourselves, the staffs of schools, what is our goal? So the information can come up from the student, from the teacher who might be teaching. It can come up from a different student who wants to teach something. And it can come up from the internet, from computers. But even computers, it's really important to understand with the old technological revolution and the great promise of technology, the technology is amazing, but it's still only a means to an end. It's only a tool. And I think what binds us here is the understanding that it's all about the people and all about human beings. So if we talk about the role of the teacher is no longer the holder of knowledge, the holder of information. In certain cases, you might be. You might teach for 10 minutes and then the kids and the students will teach each other. But I would like us to try and think of ourselves about teachers as facilitators rather than passers of knowledge. And what we have now is time. When the kids are learning as teams, I have the time to observe. You're looking at me. I wonder what you're thinking about. Are you curious? Maybe you're afraid? But I'm going to ask you. Now I have the time to ask you. How do you feel? No. Okay. You're curious a lot. What are you curious about? Okay, what's your name? Oh, where are you from? Korea. Okay, so first of all, thank you. That was really interesting, and I'm going to repeat what you said because not everyone heard. Un said that, Un from Korea, said that it's really interesting, but not entirely sure how it's going to be put in practice, right? How is it all going to work? And I showed you some pictures, so you know it can work. I'm telling you that it operates already in all different kinds of schools, in hundreds of schools in Israel and in different places in the world, but still, you're not entirely sure. Can you tell me, Una, about one thing? Are you a teacher? Yes. Can you tell me about one thing you feel you can and want to try in your class from the things I told you? It could be the cards, it could be team atmosphere. One thing you feel you can already do in your classes.
Okay.
That's the sound of thinking.
Yeah.
All good, all good.
Already doing.
So I'm going to give you time now. I would like to have an answer, but I'm asking everyone, actually. I'm going to talk about a few more things, but from all the things I talked about, this is not like an entire program. It's ideas. Can you have one thing here that you feel like you can do tomorrow with your students? You can raise your hand if you have something. Yes. What would you like to do? Cards. The cards? Okay, yes. Ask them how they feel. Yes. Someone else. Yes.
Перестроить класс, например.
Rebuild the classroom, rearrange the seats, rearrange the classroom.
Giving chance to feedback each other. When they present their own project, I giving chance to support each other by feedbacking or comment.
Okay. Do you just 1 second? I want the. We're not done yet. My second question to you. Do you feel like it's going to work?
Yes, I think so.
Yes. Okay. I'm not sure. Maybe it won't.
Yes, maybe.
And what will happen if it won't?
If it is long.
If it doesn't work, what will happen?
Or just to pass.
Try something else.
Yeah, try something else.
Okay, so I think this is something very important to say. If we want to enable our students to fail, it's completely fine to enable ourselves to fail. Maybe it's not right for the class. Maybe it's not right for the class yet. Maybe it was just the end of the day and the kids were tired and there is no real reason why it didn't work, but it still didn't. So it's really important for us to enable ourselves to reflect, just like we enable the kids, and to not be afraid of reflecting and failing. So it's really important. And again, the role of the teacher is really, really important, both to enable ourselves the learning process, because teachers who don't learn need to start learning. Because the way I perceive it, learning is living. And if we ask our students to be curious about life, we should show them what's curiosity about. And when the kids learn as teams, we have the ability to observe both about the social, emotional, psychological aspects and the pedagogical aspects. So I see this group is really, really noisy, but I feel like it's positive noise. And I know them, and I know they're working. And I see this group, they're actually pretty quiet, but I don't see real learning happening there. So I'm going to go there, and I'm not going to be mad at them, but I'm going to ask them, hey guys, what's going on? Like, why are you, I feel like this is not really happening. Why? Maybe the topic is not interesting enough. Maybe you should change the topic. I believe in you, I trust you, but trust comes with responsibility. So we're going to talk about it. So I see opportunities here. And of course, in some classes, we need the discipline. The kids are not there yet. They're not ready for autonomy. So it's a process. It's not everything or nothing. You know your classes. You know how much you can do, what you can do, and what maybe you can't do at the moment. And that's completely fine. But the idea is to move from a situation where we hold all the responsibility to have our students as maybe not colleagues, but as individuals who we are in dialogue with and partners in the learning process. And again, if we talk about the future we're preparing the kids towards, this is it. This is how the world of the workplace looks like nowadays. Now we don't have much time, but if you have some questions, go for it.
Thank you. Sorry for my English, but I have.
Sorry for my Russian.
Yeah, I am a teacher of social studies, and I very like when my students work in the teams. But I have some problems with younger students, first, second grade, and teenagers, for example, 6th, 7th grades, because they, for example, younger students, they have some problems with concentration of the task in the teams, and they started to speak with each other to the other teams, or they have some. So it's hard for them work in the team, and for the students, teenagers, they have some problems that all teenagers like some distance with another people. It's age problem. So I want to ask you about how to work with different ages groups with works in the team.
You mean mixed age groups?
No, about teamwork in the. For example, we need different teamwork in the first grade and in the 7th grade, because it's different students and they have different age problems, for example.
Okay, so first of all, I'm going to answer you what I would do right off the bat, like what I'm thinking about, but you have so many people here who work in education and can probably provide you with thousands of brilliant answers. So the first thing I'm going to say is I'm going to sit with the class, with the group, with the team, and tell them we have this student which happened to be me because I'm super hyperactive, but I'm really into learning. And tell them that we have this situation, what we can do. And we have the person in charge of the team spirit and having the happy team learning process, and ask them, like, you're in charge about the atmosphere. What do you feel like we can do? And then they would say that there were the girls who did the dance here, and they asked me, do you want to dance with us? And I was like all serious, saying, no. I'm like, I'm too serious for that. And then they started dancing, and I was like, yeah, I want to dance. This is fun. And maybe we can do that during the learning process. Just have a break of 5 minutes, have them play basketball, dance, do whatever. And then there's the person in charge of times. Maybe now it's time to go back. So this is just a thought about, and again, it's my answer, like I thought about it for like 10 seconds, but again, you probably have a lot of different answers. What I would do, and I think that's something important, is to ask the students, I don't know, we have a problem, let's try and figure it out together. Because I feel like you want, but it's frustrating you. And I'm frustrated, and the group is frustrated. Let's think together what we can do to improve the situation. Maybe you can go and take some time off, and the team can continue learning, and then someone will fill you in on what we managed to do. So there are many things you can probably do, and there are probably tons of answers which are all valid, and it all comes down to what's correct and right for that student and for that team. As for the kids in 7th grade, for example, who are like don't get along with some students, I didn't actually talk about it, but the way we come up with the teams is open for discussion. We can give them free choice. We can decide who's a part of each team. And so I would like to have both boys and girls students who are strong in different fields, students who get along with one another. So again, there are many, many different options. And again, I'm saying you, and I think this is the most important thing, that you know your class and your students best. And you have full freedom to do what you feel is right and to experiment also and tell them, like, I don't know if that's the right thing, but I don't know, let's give it a try. Yes?
I want to ask you, which kinds of reflection do you use in the educational process with your children? Thank you.
What kind of reflection? Ooh, it's like, the more, the better. I think it depends on the students, their age, their level of openness to me and to them towards themselves. But I self-reflect quite a lot. I tend to be quite aware to myself. Ever since I can remember myself, I really believe in talking. But that's me. And I think it really depends on the child and the student. And even as adults, we're different. So I would like, my answer would be, as much as a student is open for it.
I just want to say that the major thing in the team model is their relationship and the opportunity to express their feelings. So either if you want to discuss them how to work with the first grade or the 7th grade, you should just let them hear their voice, discuss, share their feelings. That's the most important thing in order to make the group work. Because it's not easy. Collaborating is not easy after you're used to listen to your teacher and do what your teacher is saying. And it could be even annoying when your teacher now is asking you, what do you want? Just tell us what to do. But after a while, when they sure that it's gonna be like the culture of the group and not just one time that the teacher wants to ask us, they will start to believe you, and they will share their feelings, and they will build the group. And reflection will be like something natural. Just talk about the experience, say what they feel about it, how they want to do it tomorrow.
I completely agree with Shachaf. I think it's about changing the class culture. And for most of the students, this question of how do you feel, what do you think about, is an alien question. It's like frightening. What do you want from me? Like, this is not a part of what we're doing here in the class. And so it's a process. But again, my answer would be that as much as they're willing to engage, I would enable it to them. Any more questions? One more question? Last question?
So I have a more practical question. I really like this thing about cards, but if we imagine, it is pretty clear that if someone raises the green card, someone the red, someone the yellow, so one helps the other and the other could ask for help. But what if no one raises the green card and only yellow or red cards appear? So what should I do as a teacher? What other students should do to other students? So like, what happens then?
What if? No, that's a good question. In that case, as a teacher, I would first panic. And then I would try and understand what did I do wrong and maybe ask the students and maybe teach it again. I don't know. But again, if we're doing something together, then I'm not afraid of these situations because it could happen. But yeah, maybe I would teach it again from a different perspective or maybe even start I wanted to say that I would divide them to teams and start the working and go around, but if they're all yellow, then there is probably something wrong with the way I taught it. So I would teach it again. You mean in a situation such as this? Okay, so the suggestion here is to bring it back to the class and make it an open discussion. I think it depends on the topic. If it's history or something that is more of a discussion, then it could work. If it's math or English, for example, maybe it's not that good because that's something that's very structured. But again, it really depends. Okay, I think our time is up. Guys, thank you so much for being here. And one last request. Once you finish, I would like you to bring back the cards, okay, to the box. Thank you.